People, if these secret docs were ever made public, Nvidia's stock would soar. Concerns about the Nvidia earnings that will be released tomorrow after the close appear to have contributed to yesterday's poor performance for the Nasdaq and the IT industry in general. There are two reasons for this. The first is that Nvidia wants to sell it since people can't game it. The other is that the market is just not receiving enough capital. A nice article regarding money leaving the market today explained that generally, when the Fed cuts, money enters the market and moves into the hot group. It actually goes in a bit less than it does out of the not-so-hot. Generally speaking, there would be some increase in its stocks, but the main gains would be in General Mills, Colgate, utilities, and of course, Toll Brothers. That was not the case yesterday. All of the money was taken out of one area and then put into another. Even though interest rates are declining, there is still insufficient revenue pouring in. The 2-year is where people are stuck. They adore it, so why not? However, there is a perception that as interest rates decline, people will return to the equity markets after leaving the money markets, where they have been earning a respectable return compared to the previous decade. Does that ever happen? Really? It has. You need corporate buybacks to be larger than they are, even though they potentially flood the share markets. They've fallen behind. A quarter-point rate decrease is a huge issue right now, but it won't flood the market. Therefore, you need to have abrupt rate cuts stated. Individuals will not abandon money markets. No. And since Nvidia is clearly a concern for everyone, we ought to discuss this. You know, there are firms doing really well with AI, like Meta, for example, so I find it absurd that this one stock and this one report could be so important. As you are aware, certain businesses are attempting to do GPTs. Companies are waiting for Blackwell, as you are aware. You are aware of the huge demand. What must then occur? I will pose the Jensen Huang question. What does it mean to be so closely scrutinized and so tiny that it dominates the market? He probably didn't anticipate that. For example, I had an email yesterday from someone who stated, "I've had enough. This guy is costing me a lot of money," which is really uncommon given how frequently he sells. He does, in fact, sell a lot of stock. Jensen is a stock seller. He owns a great deal of stock. I assume he will now have a large position when he dies. What's the point there, really? Good job, you're not affecting the market, you're not just slamming the piece down. Any estate planner would say. However, I'm saying that everything about Nvidia is currently being scrutinized, and the company is facing a lot of criticism. This could be because it's now worth $3 trillion, compared to $500 billion just 3 years ago. Because, well, it's the foundation of all the AI aspirations. Therefore, it will be a reflection of the fact that such aspirations will not be fulfilled in at least the timeframe that the market somehow expects if it does not have the advice that is expected or does not surpass it. I appreciate your analysis. One of the issues, in my opinion, is that we are unable to picture what Jensen sees. Although he hasn't fully developed, it nearly seems like he is the invisible man to us. When his squad is based solely on human characteristics, he has a robot team. Remember, Jensen constantly argues that even if everything is made to be human, we can have robots that are different from us. We simply don't know how to use them yet. If robots are going to bring us coffee, well, hold on a minute. If they're going to bring us Starbucks, that's excellent. They are able to stand in line. Might make all the difference. Might alter. Waiting in line behind someone who wants a triple venti cappuccino with skim milk, wet, and 5 pumps is, in my opinion, the main purpose of this robot thing. This is the future. It is not a question of whether it will come. When is the question? The markets are still working to determine and discount that gym. For a while, we had a huge rally because of this. In addition, Morgan Stanley's team, led by Katie Huberty, predicts that the 4 major cloud service providers will produce $176 billion in operating cash flow in 2025. They also point out that the average AI capital expenditure may increase by about 40% in 2024, indicating that the hyperscalers' coffers are still large enough to support additional expenditures. Look, don't worry about Nvidia's impending release since I believe we must. Analysts of U.S. semiconductors anticipate that it will provide a solid beat, allay fears. However, why are you bringing that up? Well, because the tone itself will be tremendously significant. You have to wait throughout this minutiae call. For example, would Colette Kress mention that there may be enough cash building to allow for a massive buyback? Nearly 10% of the stock might be repurchased by them. That might occur. Take a look at my screen. Are you ready to switch to Apple? I'll simply claim that Jensen was the one who said, "Look, I need to speed up the buyback, don't you think?" I have an incredible tip that will blow your head. Rumor has it that designs for the next generation AI architecture, which has the potential to totally transform the industry, are concealed in some Nvidia files. Imagine a neural network so strong that it could solve complicated problems instantly, process information at previously unheard of speeds, and even become conscious. This kind of innovation has the potential to put Nvidia at the forefront of the AI race and boost the company's stock price. In the digital era, it would be like striking gold if these files were made public. Now let's talk about Apple. In your opinion, David, how significant are these Nvidia profits that we will discuss non-stop till they are announced tomorrow? They seem to me to be quite significant. Remember how the S&P was up 15% in the middle of the year? Nvidia alone was responsible for 5% of the gain. An additional 5% came from the remaining Magnificent Seven, and 5% came from the remaining 493 businesses. From the standpoint of simple index weighting, Nvidia's significance is therefore undeniable. But to reiterate what I said earlier, we need further proof that this tailwind of AI spending and productivity gains is materializing. Therefore, the guidance moving ahead will be more important than the profit outcome in and of itself. The street is placing bets on significant stock movements following Nvidia's results announcement tomorrow. With bets tilted to the upside, the options market is pricing in a move of about 10% in either direction. Chris Murphy, Susquehanna's co-head of derivative strategy, is now joining us. Chris, how does this posture for Nvidia compare to previous quarters? There is a little bit of everything because it's one of the most actively traded earnings you will ever see. Selling puts on the downside would be our go-to trend if we had to pick just one. The fact that the downside is somewhat provided indicates that some investors have missed the Nvidia rise and are prepared to purchase at a discount. Selling put options on the downside is one way to illustrate that. That would be one pattern I could identify going into these earnings. But as I mentioned, you see a little bit of everything in something that trades as much as Nvidia. In the past, Nvidia was the engine powering Tesla's innovative technology. Until the firm finally created its own internal systems, these GPUs powered Tesla vehicles. These original Nvidia cards are now highly sought-after collectibles that sell for hefty prices on the illicit market. For instance, some rare models have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and one specific model is presently going for $119,000. Get yours now by clicking the link below, but don't delay. There is very little stock.